Hello, welcome to Raised by Rain. My name is Stormy, and today I'm just going to discuss kind of the key elements as to why I really enjoy the garden and what I do with the garden and the whys of all of that. I believe in today's world there is a lot of uncertainties and the unknown, and I think that is an area that a lot of people fear, especially where our food comes from. I know back in 2020 it was a huge kind of eye-opener for a lot of people with the grocery shelves and being lower stock on those essential food items that people typically grab for, and the toilet paper thing where everybody was buying boatloads of toilet paper, and it was basically out of fear. Fortunately and luckily, I didn't have to fear for if I was going to be able to provide food for myself and my family. But what it did was it opened up my eyes to, where does my food come from? So I went down that, a few different rabbit holes and whatnot, and I started learning. And that's what really changed my mindset for a lot of different things. I did not grow up on a farm. My parents growing up had a garden, but they didn't grow food in that garden. It was essentially just, wildflowers and native plants. And my parents have always been, into buying food from the co-op and farmers market and those kind of things. But as a young adult, I wasn't, really pushed for all of that. I went to McDonald's all the time. I ate fast food because it was cheap and accessible. I knew how to cook, but I didn't know how to actually cook. I knew how to warm up box meals but not really throwing, raw ingredients together and creating healthy food. Now, I don't want to discredit anybody that if that is your way of providing you and your family food, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you need to do, by all means. That's not the whole point of this little chit chat that we're gonna have. It's more the opening up your eyes to what food are you consuming, where does it come from, and how it was grown. For me, I think that is really important. Now, does that mean that I'm never gonna go smash a $2 McDonald's cheeseburger? No. So I think we need to remember that when we're discussing these kind of things, that not everybody comes from the same walk of life, not everybody has the same finances, and not everybody has, a lot of room to, grow their own food. So we just have to be mindful of that and not discredit or discourage people. I think that happens a lot more often, where if somebody is doing something that is different from what we are doing or what we believe, we just automatically tell them that it's wrong and that they don't know what they're doing. And then that person may, never take up gardening again because they were discouraged so many times, or make that loaf of bread that maybe it didn't quite rise the way it needed to, so they're not going to try it again. I'll tell you something, I've going down the bread train, I've had my fair share of failed loaves, and I just laugh about it. I know that the next time I make it, I'll try again. And that goes with the garden as well. The garden, I've been gardening for roughly 5 years now, and every single year I learn something brand new. I think this is the first year where I've taken, all of the trial and error and the failures and the wins, and I'm going to combine everything together. Not that I haven't in the past, but I feel like I'm at a certain point where I can truly, I have learned so much. And so I just want to share that with everybody. But the big thing is to learn. That is the main one. Learn from the mistakes. And, I understand. It's so easy to get discouraged when, you spent, months building a plan, and you've spent a long time and a lot of effort and money with purchasing seeds or good soil or building a raised bed, and then you go to plug in 10 tomato plants, and 2 months later they die, or they catch a disease, or you didn't get the outcome that you were expecting you were going to get, and to have that wall put up. My advice on that is you always have another opportunity, you always have another chance. and to reach out to your community. There are so many different either homesteading communities or sorry, there's a plane. Homesteading communities, gardening communities. Facebook has so many different Facebook groups. YouTube by itself, I have learned so much from when I've all the knowledge and whatnot from YouTube. That is a huge tool for me and my family. I went to YouTube college, if some will say, but don't be discouraged. You know, we all make those mistakes and whatnot, but it's what you do with that information that really matters. So, well, going back down the road of, or the tangent on learning, learning where your food comes from is super important, especially if you're trying to be health conscious or just being aware. If you think about it, 100 plus years ago, you know, obviously plus, but 100 years ago, a majority of, you know, American households had some sort of garden in their yard and whatnot. That was so that they could provide themselves and their family with food. There was a lot of trade and barter going on back then. But the thing is, the skill and the knowledge to be able to grow food was thick. I mean, a lot of people knew how to do that compared to nowadays where it's, you know, a specific... Oh, that's a chicken. She's like, preach, girl. Hold please, I'm gonna let her have her moment. All right, since my chicken is done having her moment, I'll continue. So I think now people are, you know, a little apprehensive when it comes to growing their own food. It's either they don't have space to do so, or they don't have the skill and the knowledge to do so. But a majority of people, you know, either have a front yard, a backyard, a balcony. There are so many ways to grow something, even if it's just your salad greens, or, you know, a little container garden on your balcony, or if that's all that you're able to due to physical limitations, by all means. There are so many options out there now. Back in 2020, we had moved from California to Iowa, and luckily we had found a house that had some raised beds in the backyard and a chicken coop. So, and with a fairly decent size plot of land. I live on a little bit less than an acre, so nothing crazy. I'm doing this all in my backyard. I absolutely love it. We've got a whole bunch of raised beds back here. I want to say there's like 17 or so. Now that's a lot. Obviously I've got some big goals and big plans, and that's why I'm able to do, that's why I take up probably a quarter of my backyard with garden space. I do have dogs, so I keep it fenced off so they don't get in here. And the chicken coop as well. When we purchased the house, the chicken coop was super run down, needed a lot of work, but it was work that we were able to do ourselves, so we didn't have to, you know, hire somebody out here and fix it. That was a task that we took on ourselves. So having the space to be able to, you know, grow the things that I want to grow and you know, make where my food is a priority, and knowing the growing process of, you know, what a tomato looks like when that grows. I'll say, like, I've seen tomato plants growing up and whatnot, but I didn't know how it actually grew, and the benefits of, you know, growing it yourself. We don't spray any chemicals. The only thing I do add to the raised beds is compost and like organic fertilizers. I made a video about fish emulsion fertilizer from Ocean Forest? No, I'll throw it up on the screen. Super stinky, but I swear by it. It does some wonders for your plants, but it's not harming anything. I don't want to eat that because it's fish emulsion, but if I accidentally did, it's not going to hurt me. You know, it'll just taste weird and smell and all that nasty stuff. Another thing, that the reason why I have a garden is it really does help with my mental health so much. I have raging ADHD. It may not seem like it, but I really do. I'm not the cleanest person. I can be really messy at times. I am, you know, in my 30s, so it's taken me a long time to find that rhythm that doesn't necessarily include taking medication. I'm not against people taking medication. Like I said before, you do you, boo-boo. I'm not here to tell you how you're living your life is wrong by any means. But for me personally, it just wasn't for me. I went down that road as a child, and it just wasn't for me. It wasn't what I was matching up to. There was a while there where at nighttime, I really struggled to fall asleep, because when I'd lay down, I'd think about all the bad things that was going on in my life. I would struggle with, people I've hurt in the past, how I've hurt myself in the past, and I never felt like I had a purpose or a reason to be here. Until I started, growing flowers, that was a big one for me. So what I did was at night, I would be laying there and I would be scrutinizing myself and being extremely mean to myself. I think a lot of us are, we're our worst enemy. But I would tell myself that I grow flowers. That one little simple thing. It was really easy for me to remember. And I would just tell myself that I grow flowers. That's it. And what that did was it reminded me that I give something back beautiful and meaningful to the earth. Not only is it for my own enjoyment, but now, as of today, when friends or family come over, I have to show them all the flowers. And it's just cool. A lot of people don't have a bunch of random flowers growing in their backyard, so I like to show that off. But what it also did for me, for like my ADHD and that standpoint, and OCD, and all of that entails, trauma, was it created a year-long timeline for me. What I would do in the past is I know how to do so many things, because I would get really infatuated with one thing and I would fully commit to that one thing, either a new skill, a new hobby, a new, what I'm saying, that one thing. I would just fully indulge and overconsume and do all that, and then it would fade out, because I'd be like, all right, well, what else can I do with it? I've already mastered it in my eyes, So then I would go through a period of depression, and then that next thing would spark. I mean, when I say I know how to do a lot of different skills and tasks, it's because I never knew how to fully control my ADHD and what that looked like. So with the garden, it gives me a year-long hobby. So we'll start with springtime, right? Everything is waking up. I'm able to start planning for the summer and fall time. I get to order and buy seeds. I get to start seedlings, and it wakes my soul up. And then summertime comes and it's full garden time, and I am getting my hands dirty. I'm actively outside all the time, either planting, harvesting, maintaining, just enjoying. That's the big thing. It just brings so much love and joy to my soul. Fall time comes. At that point, I'm a little tired with the garden. I don't dislike it or anything, but I'm tired. After fall time comes, that's when my soul is ready to take a breather. It's ready to rest. It's not giving up. It's not giving in or anything like that, but it's time for me to put the trowel down, if you know what I'm saying, and rest. So that's a period of time where it's really easy to fall into seasonal depression. So I'm planning the garden, I'm thinking about it, I'm using the food that I've preserved throughout the summer and fall time, and it's just reminding me of the garden. So it doesn't go away, it's always there. And then winter time is slowly ending. Once it ends, right back into spring. And it's just this constant, garden in my life. It's constantly growing food. It's constantly loving the garden and wanting to be in the garden. And I think right now is probably one of my favorite times of the year, is because everything is starting to turn green. I live in an area where everything dies. Everything other than evergreen trees. We don't have grass during the winter. We don't have any plants. It is brittle and cold. So that's why it helps me. And like I said, I enjoy growing the food, and I really enjoy consuming the food. I really love growing tomatoes. I love growing onions. That is one of my favorite things to grow. Now I'll say this too. Every year is different. I learn something new every single year. I have failures every single year, and I have wins every single year. So you take all that and you learn from it, and you don't get discouraged. It's never going to be perfect. It'll be really close to perfect, or it'll be really bad. I mean, there's every year's different, like I said, and that all depends on the weather. It depends on us as gardeners and as farmers and how we're maintaining and handling things. The best medicine for the garden is the gardener. But another thing is to be inspired by others. You're not on a silo, you're not on your own little private island, and never compare yourself to others either. Be inspired and motivated by them. Don't ever hold yourself against them. Especially in this community, it's really easy to do that. You've got, your people who are very, like I had mentioned earlier, it's gotta be done a certain way. It doesn't. We're all, beautiful and unique individuals, and we're all built different. We all look different. We can act different as well. So can the garden is the exact same. She can throw a hissy fit sometimes, and she can be your best friend at times. It just all depends on, how much love and effort you're pouring into her. Growing up as a kid, I remember my mom would have me, almost as a punishment, go out and weed her garden. And I hated it so much. Even to this day, pulling dandelions, I'm like, man, reminds me of my childhood. But now I really take ownership over maintaining. That's a big step of gardening. A good example is my wife had built me onion bed. It was specifically only for onions. The first 3 years that I had that bed, I did only plant onions in it, but that was not the only thing that grew in it. Weeds took over. The first year I was really concerned because my onions were super small. I'm like, why? I did everything right other than I didn't weed them. I didn't weed the onion bed. So the next year I did a little bit better. And then last year I was like, well, maybe this isn't the spot for it, because I personally cannot maintain it. It's too big of an area. I had done kind of a little experiment where I have some long tomato beds where we put these cattle panel trellises up, and I realized there's plenty of room where I could do a row of onions down that. I also did a row of garlic as well. And I did that last year, and I realized, wow, that is an area that I'm always at. I'm always maintaining because of the tomatoes. And so let me try growing all my onions there this year. So that's basically what I did. I do have some random leeks and shallots throughout some of the other beds that I have, but I realized that sometimes you may have a plan of what you think is going to work perfectly, and sometimes that doesn't always work out, and you have to pivot, which is totally fine. I realized no matter what, I'm still gonna have onions, either if they're gonna be super small. If they're really small, I'll make onion powder out of them, and it's the best onion powder you'll ever have. Or if I change my mindset, I can get really large onions, and onions that are what I intended. So just being pliable and flexible to change is really important. And also realizing that, and now you're going to take this with a grain of salt, it really depends on you and how you garden and what your garden looks like. Mine is it's got some control to it, but it's also very organic. So what I mean by that is there's weeds in the walkways, there's going to be dandelions popping everywhere. I've got creeping Charlie everywhere, and I could stress over that and constantly pull them out and tarp them down and whatnot, which I have. But does that bring me all the joy, and is it actually causing an issue with the food that I am growing? Not necessarily. So it really just depends. So don't beat yourself up, don't weigh yourself down, and definitely don't compare how you garden to other people's gardens. It'll just drive you up the wall, it'll drive you crazy, and then you'll give up. And that's what we don't want you to give up. So let this be a little bit of motivation. Some things that I really love about the garden, besides all the other things that I've chatted about and things that I've learned, even though we're discussing all that, I love how I plant flowers sporadically throughout the entire garden. I get to a point where I just plug in seeds everywhere. And so, in a few months when everything is really large and lush, there's just little pops of color everywhere. And no matter what bed I walk in, there's flowers, and that, like I had said, brings a lot of joy to my soul, alongside the food that I'm able to harvest and eat. It's just so magical, and I love bringing people into the garden and having them walk around. And I like to do My wife makes fun of it because every single time we have anybody over during this time of the year, I'm like, she just knows, all right, we're going to the garden. Stormy's got a chit chat, because I have to show it off. I have to show them, because to me it's so impressive. Even if they're not garden people, that's okay. That's all right. It's still something cool. And if they're truly your friends, then they will see that excitement and passion in your eyes, and they'll love you for it. So not only that, but hopefully it'll inspire people that come and see it, either to work on their own garden, to start a garden, or just to, go down that rabbit hole of where your food comes from. That's really important too. So, but anyway, I could go on and on all day long, so I'm gonna cut this off here, but I'm making this mainly for myself, so whenever I'm starting to feel a little discouraged, I can re-watch this and remind myself that this is a beautiful space, and I am super lucky and fortunate that I am able to maintain this and have a passion and love for it. So thank you for joining me today. Do not be afraid to get your hands dirty, and that's all I got. Thanks. All right, I don't know when I'm gonna insert this clip into the video, but one thing that I also have failed to mention is the gratification of the hard work. So right now, I'm just walking around and I'm looking at all the things that I've put into the garden, all the plants that I've tended to and I've maintained, and it's just a reminder that I can do hard things. I can have commitment, and I can make sure that the passion stays alive. So yeah, get out, walk your garden, check things out, enjoy it, share it with others. That's a big one.